My name is Cynthia Clark. For years, I kept a secret from everyone close to me. I earned $33,000 a month as a senior project manager at a major tech company. That income allows me to live comfortably without financial stress. Yet in my family's eyes, I have always been the disappointment, the one who never measured up to my older brother. He is the success story, the pride who carries the family name forward. I am just the quiet failure who chose a path they never respected and never tried to understand. That night during a family dinner, I decided to test them. I pretended my parents were facing serious health problems and mentioned that urgent treatment was needed. I carefully brought up the cost, watching their faces as I spoke. I wanted to know whether they would stand by me even once the way they had always stood by my brother, no matter how difficult things became. The moment I finished speaking, something shifted at the table. Glances were exchanged. Someone slowly set their utensils down, and in that silence, I realized I was about to learn exactly where I truly stood in my own family. If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love reading those and seeing people from all over the world tuning in. It means the world to me. Looking back at how my life turned out, I realize many choices led me to where I am today. Right after finishing college, I decided to move out and handle everything on my own financially, without relying on any support from my family. That meant finding a small apartment near public transit, budgeting strictly for rent and utilities, and taking on part-time jobs while searching for full-time opportunities in project management. I started with junior roles that involved tracking timelines for software releases and coordinating between developers and stakeholders. Long hours went into mastering tools like Jira and Agile methodologies, which helped me deliver projects ahead of schedule and earn recognition from supervisors. Each successful delivery opened doors to larger responsibilities, from managing cross-functional teams to overseeing budgets that grew into the millions. Reaching the senior project manager level came after years of proving reliability on high-stakes initiatives at a major tech firm. The role required negotiating with vendors, mitigating risks during deployments, and ensuring client requirements aligned with technical capabilities. Compensation reflected that expertise, providing steady high earnings that built substantial savings over time. Despite the financial stability, I consciously avoided upgrades that would signal wealth outwardly. My home stayed a modest one-bedroom with basic furniture focused on comfort rather than style. Transportation remained a practical sedan chosen for fuel efficiency and low maintenance costs. Meals involved simple grocery runs for ingredients I cooked myself most nights, prioritizing nutrition over dining out. Family interactions over the years revealed persistent differences in how success was measured. My parents and older brother emphasized staying tied to the local trucking company as the true mark of achievement. Choosing a corporate tech career instead often led to comments suggesting my path lacked the security of family tradition. Those conversations carried subtle implications that my accomplishments fell short because they existed outside the business legacy. Updates about my promotions received polite acknowledgement, but enthusiasm always shifted quickly to company matters. The pattern solidified the divide between our perspectives on fulfillment. To prevent any shift in dynamics based on money, I chose early to keep exact income figures private around them. Sharing specifics could invite expectations or requests that complicated the independence I had worked hard to establish. Privacy on finances helped maintain interactions focused on other topics rather than potential obligations. Daily routines centered on professional demands that required constant adaptation and clear decision-making. Mornings involved reviewing dashboards for project health, afternoons focused on resolving blockers through team discussions, and evenings concluded with documentation updates. This rhythm demanded discipline, but delivered satisfaction from visible progress. Balance outside office hours came from straightforward activities that restored energy effectively. Weekend hikes in nearby parks offered physical release, while listening to podcasts on industry trends kept skills sharp without formal study pressure. Occasional coffee meetups with colleagues built networks that supported career growth naturally. These elements created a lifestyle grounded in self-reliance and quiet contentment. Professional milestones like guiding a troubled project to successful completion or mentoring juniors reinforce the value of individual effort. Emotional stability stemmed from decisions aligned with personal priorities rather than external validation. Reflecting on that independent foundation clarifies why later family developments felt both unsurprising and necessary to address directly. The habits formed through solo navigation prepared me for maintaining boundaries when needed. Contentment continued growing from achievements earned without compromise. One evening, a few months ago, I stopped by my parents' house unannounced to drop off some groceries Mom had mentioned needing during our last quick call. The visit started casually enough with small talk in the kitchen, while I helped unpack bags and catch up on minor updates about neighbors and daily routines. Dad sat reading in the living room nearby occasionally, chiming in with comments about the weather or local news playing softly on television. As conversation paused naturally, I stepped into the hallway to hang my coat and heard voices carrying from the study where the door stood slightly ajar. Mom and my brother Jason spoke in lowered tones that still traveled clearly through the quiet house, discussing urgent matters related to the local trucking company he managed full-time. Their exchange focused on a major investor backing out abruptly after reviewing recent financial reports that exposed debt accumulation far beyond sustainable limits for ongoing operations. Mom voiced worry about covering upcoming payroll for drivers and mechanics without dipping into personal savings meant for retirement stability. "We can't keep pretending everything is fine when bills are piling up like this," she said, frustration evident in her clipped words. Jason replied defensively, admitting personal expenses on new equipment and travel had escalated costs more than anticipated. "I thought those investments would pay off quicker, but routes aren't bringing in what they used to," he explained, sounding strained, as if justifying choices made without full consultation. The details painted a troubling picture of cash flow shortages threatening contracts for regional hauls that formed the core revenue stream. Expansion into longer distances required loans now called in early due to missed covenants tied to profit margins. Mom pressed for solutions, suggesting cuts Jason resisted because they impacted his daily oversight role and employee loyalty built over years. Hearing the admission firsthand shifted my perspective immediately on vulnerabilities hidden behind previous assurances of steady progress. The company represented more than income. It embodied family legacy my parents nurtured through decades of hard work before handing reins to Jason gradually. His spending patterns, from upgraded vehicles to extended trips, framed as networking opportunities, clearly contributed to the current strain without corresponding returns. After their voices faded as they moved deeper into the room, I returned to the kitchen, acting as though nothing happened while processing the overheard exchange quietly. Later that same evening, my close friend Sarah texted after work, having caught wind through professional circles about similar challenges facing local transport firms. "Hey, is everything okay with your family's business? I heard some tough rumors today," she wrote, offering context from loan discussions at her bank, without specifics that breached privacy. Her message aligned closely with what I accidentally learned hours earlier, confirming investor concerns stemmed from audited withdrawals labeled personal rather than operational necessities. Potential restructuring loomed if fresh capital failed to materialize, soon risking asset seizures or forced sales of trucks essential for daily runs. Sarah added she remained available if I wanted to talk through it, privately reminding me of supportive friendships outside family obligations. The combination stirred layered emotions that persisted long into the night as facts settled firmly. Concern arose genuinely for my parents facing uncertainty in later years, planned around reliable dividends from the business. Yet intertwined with sympathy came resurfacing questions about fairness in support patterns favoring Jason's ventures consistently over time. The unexpected insight prompted careful consideration of involvement levels previously assumed minimal given historical dynamics. Worry mixed with caution shaped by experiences where assistance requests flowed predominantly one way. Reflection continued as implications for daily operations and employee impacts became clearer through Sarah's neutral perspective. The visit intended as simple help turned into revelation of fragility masked until pressure mounted unbearably. Family pride tied to the trucking legacy now faced real tests beyond optimistic projections once common. Emotions balanced precariously between empathy for individuals affected and protective resolve toward boundaries established long ago. That night, after leaving my parents' house, specific memories from the past kept resurfacing as I drove home and thought about the company's serious troubles Jason and Mom discussed without knowing I heard everything. One clear example involved the time Jason decided to purchase a 4-bedroom house in a newer subdivision closer to the main dispatch center for quicker response times during emergencies. Mom immediately reallocated funds from a certificate of deposit to cover the sizable down payment, explaining it strengthened his ability to oversee daily operations effectively, while my request for help with advanced certification fees got dismissed because cash flow needed preservation for unexpected repair bills on aging trailers. Another instance centered on vehicle choices when Jason replaced his daily driver with a heavy-duty pickup equipped with towing packages suitable for occasional equipment moves between warehouses. My parents covered the difference between trade-in value and new price, without hesitation viewing it as a practical expense, supporting business efficiency during client visits or site inspections. In contrast, my need for a reliable laptop upgrade to handle larger data sets at work prompted responses about monitoring discretionary spending closely due to seasonal fluctuations in shipping volumes. Neighborhood block parties often featured my parents sharing details of Jason expanding partnerships with regional warehouses that increased weekly loads by 20% in one quarter alone. Dad recounted how Jason renegotiated fuel supplier terms to lock in lower rates for the entire fleet, earning nods of approval from other business owners gathered around coolers and grills. Those stories positioned Jason as the capable leader, extending the trucking legacy they started decades earlier with just a few vehicles. During the same events, inquiries about my role managing software rollouts or coordinating remote teams received brief replies before conversations circled back to Jason's latest hires or route optimizations that reduced delivery times noticeably. The shift happened smoothly yet consistently, making my updates feel like side notes compared to company developments everyone followed closely. That dynamic reinforced impressions of where family pride concentrated most heavily. Christmas dinners followed predictable rhythms, where Jason described implementing new tracking software across trucks to improve real-time monitoring for clients expecting precise arrival windows. Mom highlighted how those changes attracted larger accounts previously hesitant about reliability concerns in competitive bidding processes. Praise flowed freely for initiatives Jason championed, while discussions of my project successes in streamlining internal processes drew polite interest quickly redirected toward business projections for the coming year. Reflecting on those patterns raised serious questions about offering unconditional financial help now when the company faced investor withdrawal and mounting debt obligations. Extending resources freely risked perpetuating one-sided support structures evident throughout adult life without evidence of balanced reciprocity. The overheard crisis felt real enough to warrant concern for my parents' retirement security tied to business performance, yet historical favoritism complicated automatic generosity significantly. Weighing involvement meant acknowledging how past experiences shaped current reluctance to commit funds without safeguards or acknowledgement of mutual needs. Resentment from overlooked requests during key career stages lingered beneath surface sympathy for their predicament. Balancing genuine worry against self-protection required honest assessment of whether patterns would shift under pressure or remain firmly entrenched. The alternative crystallized as testing family responses by reversing roles temporarily through a fabricated personal need requiring their assistance. Framing it around health expenses for my parents added layers of irony while allowing observation of priorities in action. $15,000 represented a believable amount for uncovered medical procedures based on common insurance gaps many face unexpectedly. Planning focused on introducing the scenario during a planned weekend dinner to ensure natural flow within familiar surroundings. Timing aimed for mid-meal when conversation relaxed enough to absorb serious topics without immediate defensiveness. Preparation involved outlining symptoms and costs, plausibly to maintain credibility throughout reactions received. Emotional stakes rose with recognition that outcomes would inform larger decisions about company rescue efforts definitively. Hope for different responses existed quietly despite evidence suggesting otherwise from accumulated history. Resolve strengthened around accepting results as confirmation needed for clear boundaries moving forward. The approach promised insight unavailable through direct confrontation about overheard details or past imbalances. Clarity on reciprocity levels felt essential before exposing financial capability built independently over years. The upcoming dinner carried potential to redefine interactions based on honesty revealed in crisis simulation. Internal debate concluded with commitment to proceed cautiously while protecting personal stability earned through solo effort. The test served as gateway to informed choices rather than emotional impulse. Readiness grew for whatever attitudes surfaced when roles flipped momentarily in practice. That weekend at my parents' house, I arrived early enough to help Mom finish setting the table with the everyday plates she reserved for family meals rather than special occasions. The menu featured her standard Sunday spread of baked ham glazed with brown sugar scalloped potatoes, layered with cheese and fresh salad from greens. Dad grew in the backyard plot he tended religiously every spring. Conversation flowed easily at first as Jason arrived with a bottle of wine he picked up from a local store, commenting on how busy routes kept him on the road longer lately, with increased holiday shipments demanding extra drivers. We sat down together with Dad at the head carving the ham while Mom passed serving dishes around in the familiar rhythm developed over countless similar evenings. Talk covered safe topics like recent weather patterns affecting delivery schedules and a neighbor's new puppy causing commotion in the cul-de-sac. Laughter came lightly when Jason recounted a minor mix-up with a shipment that resolved quickly thanks to his quick call to the client contact. I waited until everyone finished main courses and coffee refills circulated before bringing up the prepared topic that weighed heavily on my mind since planning it weeks earlier. Clearing my throat slightly to draw attention, I explained recent medical consultations uncovered issues for both my parents requiring prompt intervention to avoid escalation into more serious conditions. The estimated costs came to $15,000 upfront for test procedures and follow-up care that insurance wouldn't cover fully given policy limits on certain diagnostics. Mom paused mid-sip of her coffee, placing the mug down firmly, while her expression twisted into disbelief mixed with amusement. "You're seriously asking us for money like this after all these years of barely scraping by on your own," she said with a sharp laugh, shaking her head as if the request bordered on absurd, given my track record. She added that expecting them to bail me out again felt like a joke considering how often I avoided family contributions in the past. Dad kept his eyes on the tablecloth, folding his napkin slowly without speaking up or showing concern for the supposed health details I shared. His complete silence allowed Mom's mocking tone to dominate the moment, reinforcing the dismissal without needing words from him to underline the refusal. Jason leaned back with a wide grin, letting out an exaggerated chuckle before piling on. "This has to be some kind of prank, right? You coming here pretending to need cash when you've always acted too independent for help." He mocked openly, voice dripping with sarcasm as he glanced at my parents for shared amusement. He continued by saying I should finally act like the grown-up I claimed to be, instead of running back for handouts whenever life got tough. Their reactions centered entirely on ridiculing the idea of me needing assistance, turning the serious request into something laughable rather than worthy of genuine discussion. Mom followed up with another jab about how surprising it was to see me finally admitting struggles after years of distancing myself from family support systems. Jason nodded enthusiastically, adding that the timing felt convenient, almost as if scripted for maximum drama at their expense. No one asked follow-up questions about symptoms or treatment options, treating the entire scenario as an opportunity for pointed humor instead of a family matter requiring empathy. The mockery escalated lightly with references to past choices I made, rejecting closer involvement in business affairs that could have positioned me better financially by now. Laughter filled brief pauses, underscoring the unified front of amusement at my expense. Conversation shifted afterward to unrelated topics like plans for yard work the next day, brushing past the request completely as unworthy of further consideration. Dad finally contributed a comment about dessert portions, steering away from any lingering tension effectively. Jason checked his phone with a lingering smirk, clearly entertained by the exchange. Still sitting there at the dinner table, I let the mockery hang in the air for a moment before responding in a calm voice that surprised even me with its steadiness. Their laughter faded gradually as I looked directly at each of them and revealed the truth I had kept private for so long. I earn $33,000 every month in my role as senior project manager, a figure built through consistent promotions and successful deliveries on major client accounts over the past several years. Silence replaced the earlier amusement almost instantly, with Mom's mouth opening slightly in shock, while Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair without meeting my gaze. Jason stared at me with wide eyes, his previous smirk disappearing completely as the words registered fully. "You're joking, right? There's no way you've been making that much without saying anything." Jason blurted out, his voice rising with a mix of disbelief and frustration. I continued by stating plainly that I already knew about the severe debt burden on the trucking company and the real risk of bankruptcy if new funding failed to arrive soon to cover overdue obligations. Mom gasped audibly, covering her mouth with her hand. "How could you possibly know about that? We never told you the full extent," she whispered, eyes widening as color drained from her face. Dad finally spoke up quietly, his tone laced with unease. "Cynthia, if you've known all this time, why bring it up now like this?" he asked, avoiding direct acknowledgement of my income revelation. I refused any form of financial assistance to rescue the company, making the position clear without raising my voice or showing anger. The long-standing favoritism that prioritized Jason's needs and achievements destroyed whatever trust remained for mutual support in difficult times. Mom's eyes filled with tears as she reached out again. "We didn't mean to hurt you. It was never about choosing sides. We just thought Jason needed more guidance with the business," she pleaded, voice breaking on the last words. Jason cut in sharply. "Come on, you can't hold old stuff against us when we're in real trouble here. That's not fair," he protested, leaning forward urgently. Their sudden shift to apologies and pleas felt calculated more than genuine, driven by recognition of resources suddenly within reach rather than regret over past patterns. "Please, Cynthia, we can fix this as a family if you just help us through this rough patch," Mom begged, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. Dad added softly, "We've always been proud of you in our way. Let's not let money change everything now." The reversal highlighted how attitudes adjusted rapidly when potential benefit appeared on my side of the equation. Emotional detachment grew stronger in response to the transparent motivation underlying quick changes in tone. I stood up slowly from the table, gathering my things while stating the need for space to process everything fully before any further contact. Mom stood as well, voice trembling. "Don't leave like this, we can talk it out tonight," she urged, stepping closer with outstretched hands. Jason tried one last appeal. "At least think about it before cutting us off completely," he said, frustration mixing with desperation in his expression. Rejection came firmly but without hostility, emphasizing the break required time away from all communication for clarity on boundaries moving forward. Leaving the house that night carried a sense of finality, shaped by revelations exchanged openly at last. Driving away provided immediate relief from tension built throughout the meal and preceding weeks. Distance felt necessary to preserve decisions aligned with self-respect earned independently. Reflection during the quiet ride home solidified commitment to the pause, announced clearly at departure. Their reactions confirmed suspicions tested deliberately, removing lingering doubts about underlying priorities. Peace settled gradually from choosing protection over forced reconciliation under altered circumstances. The evening ended with no immediate follow-up attempts that night, allowing space requested without challenge initially. Resolve strengthened around maintaining separation until personal terms felt appropriate, if ever again. The confrontation delivered closure needed for moving ahead unencumbered by unresolved expectations. A few months later, the local trucking company officially filed for bankruptcy protection after failing to meet debt payments to banks and remaining investors who demanded immediate repayment plans. The process unfolded quickly once creditors initiated proceedings leading to asset liquidation that included selling off trucks and equipment at auction to satisfy outstanding loans secured against business property. Court documents detailed years of operating losses masked by creative accounting practices that delayed recognition of problems until too late for recovery. Former investors who lost significant capital launched lawsuits against Jason, personally alleging he misrepresented financial health during funding rounds to secure additional investments. Claims centered on omitted disclosures about personal withdrawals used for non-business purposes that weakened cash reserves critically needed for daily operations. Discovery phases revealed email trails and bank records supporting accusations of misleading statements made to maintain investor confidence artificially. Jason faced formal investigation by state authorities, examining potential fraud charges related to investor solicitation materials distributed over multiple years. Subpoenas required production of internal ledgers and correspondence that painted a picture of deliberate concealment to avoid early withdrawal of support funds. Legal counsel advised settlement options early, but mounting evidence complicated negotiations as prosecutors reviewed criminal referral possibilities. My parents lost ownership of their home through foreclosure proceedings, triggered when the bank called in the mortgage tied to business guarantees they signed years earlier. Notices arrived by certified mail outlining auction dates for the property they occupied for decades, forcing hurried packing of belongings into storage units rented temporarily. Relocation to a small apartment became necessary as equity evaporated completely under lean priorities established long ago. Messages and calls from them increased dramatically during this period, starting with updates about court dates and escalating to direct pleas for financial intervention to halt proceedings or cover legal fees, accumulating rapidly. Voicemails from Mom carried desperation about losing personal items collected over a lifetime, while Dad's rare messages focused on practical needs like deposits for new housing. Jason's communications mixed anger at the system with requests for loans to fight charges or restart smaller operations elsewhere. Each contact received the same response from me, declining involvement in any rescue efforts or contributions toward mounting costs. Replies stayed brief and consistent, reiterating the decision made months earlier, after boundaries clarified definitively during our last in-person exchange. Blocking numbers temporarily reduced volume, but new ones appeared through different phones or mutual contacts attempting mediation unsuccessfully. Their situation deteriorated steadily as legal battles drained remaining resources without favorable outcomes materializing soon enough to reverse momentum. Settlement talks failed when investors refused terms Jason proposed, prolonging public scrutiny through local business news coverage, highlighting mismanagement details. Reputation damage extended beyond finances into community standing, built carefully over generations. Observing developments from distance reinforced conviction about choices protecting personal stability earned independently. Attempts to pull me back into obligations felt predictable given historical patterns now amplified under extreme pressure. Refusal maintained without exception, preserved space needed for individual priorities uncompromised by external crises. The consequences played out realistically within legal frameworks common for small family businesses overextended in competitive markets. No dramatic interventions altered trajectories set by prior decisions accumulating over time. Acceptance of outcomes as natural results, rather than personal attacks, eased emotional processing significantly. Distance provided perspective on how separation allowed focus on positive aspects of life, uninterrupted by recurring demands. Their challenges continued evolving through established channels without my participation, altering paths already chosen long before revelations surfaced. Clarity remained about where responsibilities ended definitively on both sides. These days, my life looks completely different from the one I knew before that final confrontation with my family. I pour all my energy into the professional projects that challenge me daily and deliver results I take pride in achieving through teamwork and strategic planning. Meetings with stakeholders run smoothly as focus remains undivided by external distractions that once pulled attention away from career goals built steadily over years. Relationships nurtured now center on colleagues who value collaboration and friends who offer genuine support without hidden expectations tied to personal gain. Conversations flow freely about shared interests in technology trends or weekend plans that recharge effectively after intense work weeks. Connections feel reciprocal in ways that reinforce trust earned through consistent actions rather than assumed obligations from blood ties alone. Daily routines settled into comfortable patterns, providing stability missing during periods of family tension pulling in multiple directions simultaneously. Mornings begin with reviewing task lists over coffee, prepared exactly to preference in a kitchen organized for efficiency alone. Evenings allow unwinding through reading reports or novels that expand perspectives without pressure from unresolved conflicts lingering in the background. Peace characterizes most days as absence of recurring demands, creates space for personal growth, previously crowded out by attempts to maintain fragile balances. Decisions about time allocation rest entirely with me, freeing resources for pursuits aligned with individual priorities shaped independently long ago. The quiet proves restorative rather than empty, highlighting how much mental energy once went toward navigating uneven dynamics. No regret surfaces when reflecting on the complete separation from my parents and Jason, a choice that protected boundaries essential for sustained well-being. Distance eliminated cycles of disappointment rooted in mismatched expectations that persisted despite efforts to bridge gaps occasionally. Acceptance of the cutoff as permanent brings relief grounded in self-respect, preserved through firm resolution. New interests emerged gradually to fill openings created by reduced family contact, starting with joining a local book club, discussing nonfiction titles on leadership and innovation monthly. Weekend volunteering at community tech workshops, teaching basic coding to underserved youth, provided fulfillment from giving back skills honed professionally. Travel plans materialized for short trips exploring nearby cities, experiencing independence in navigation and discovery without coordination required for group approval. Freedom manifests clearly in choices made daily without second-guessing potential reactions from others tied by history rather than current compatibility. Financial decisions remain private and purposeful, directed toward long-term security and occasional rewards that enhance quality of life meaningfully. The autonomy feels earned and natural after years establishing it step by step. Looking back, the biggest lesson centers on recognizing that true family builds on mutual respect and reliable support rather than blood relations alone. Money cannot purchase authentic connection when foundational trust erodes from repeated imbalance favoring one side consistently. Prioritizing self-respect over clinging to toxic ties preserves personal integrity essential for healthy relationships elsewhere, allowing space for bonds formed through shared values and reciprocal care instead. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying with this story all the way to the end. It means so much knowing you took the time to listen through every part. Your support keeps channels like this going strong. If anything resonated with you or you've faced something similar, please share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. I'd love to read them and hear your perspectives.